S- So I'm here today with Lala and Kiki from Kids for Adventure. And they're moms that understand the challenges of traveling with children that have special needs. We're going to visit about their children, the special needs, and how they overcome those and make they travel successfully. So you guys want to tell us a little bit more about yourselves?
Sure. Thank you very much for having us today. My name is Kiki, and this is Lala. We are both moms with children with special needs. I have three children, two are typical, and one has special needs, cerebral palsy, global development delays, and apraxia. And I love to travel, and I wanted to nurture that love in my children as well. And Diane, sorry, Lala, that's the name that my kids have given her, and it has stuck. Lala is my best friend, and lucky for me, she also has a huge sense of adventure, as well as understands the special needs community and challenges that go with that, because her son also has special needs.
My son is 12 years old and he has a very rare syndrome called Smith-Magenis syndrome. So global developmental delays, some speech delays, and some issues with transitions. So we have worked very hard to get him out there and let him experience new things. And what we have found is what we thought was going to be a challenge with him. Turns out that he loves traveling as much as we do.
Well, that's very nice. And Kiki, how about your kids? Do they all love to travel?
They do, especially my daughter with special needs. Every single day, she's asking which hotel we're going to, what new pool we can go to. And I absolutely love her sense of adventure, but it does come with some challenges, which are usually mitigated with a lot of pre-planning and a lot of open conversations with the places that we're going to go to, whether it's a tour company or cruise company. On our own exploring, we call and email a lot to make it a great experience for her as well as for everybody else.
I started my channel and started doing what I do because sometimes you have to do a lot of research and sometimes the answers are hard to find. So can you talk a little bit about how you do the research, how you find the places you want to go? Let's say start from the idea of, okay, we want to go to this place. How do you work through the process to find accessible choices?
Well, first of all, a lot of information, unfortunately, is not online when it comes to making accommodations for both of our children. They both have mobility challenges as well as cognitive challenges. So we do a lot of phoning. I will get phone numbers from online through contact us websites, or even sometimes digging a little deeper through TripAdvisor or something like that, where somebody has posted a customer service number. And instead of going through a general call center, I will try and get a live person for the location we are going to and talk to somebody who is hands-on in the situation that can give us a real life what to expect. And then from there, we'll talk to them about, well, these are some of our challenges. How can we make this accessible for our children? And how can we make it so we all enjoy it? We don't want to cut out big chunks of a trip or an experience to make it accessible. Like, how can we mold that so not only do we get to experience it as a group, but how can we all enjoy it as thoroughly as possible? Because it's I hate to say this, but it's not fair that two of my kids can do it and then two of them wouldn't be able to. So we really try and make it so it's inclusive for everybody.
That makes a lot of sense. You don't want to have the two children that don't travel with challenges to not be able to enjoy what's happening, and you don't want the children with challenges to not enjoy it. I can understand how that would make it more complex. What are some of the places you've been that have worked well? How do you guys normally travel? Do you fly, drive? Let's talk about those things.
Well, interesting that you should ask. With Kiki and her family, they are known for doing massive road trips. They go everywhere across the country and they like to do a lot of camping and visit national parks. My family, my son, my husband, and myself like to do Disney parks. So we tend to fly places. So we kind of melded both of our worlds together. So our kids get a very well-rounded experience, because we might go and see 3 national parks and explore and learn about the environment. And then we go and ride roller coasters at Disney World. So there is that mix. And I think it shines light on different types of travel. So we're never locked into one type of travel. We do road trips. We've done cruises with the kids. We've flown. My son has been to Europe. We've taken train rides. The sky's the limit, literally. We want to do everything we can. This summer we're camping, and then we're taking a ferry out to the Channel Islands, which is a national park. So we're doing a little bit more road trip, that kind of thing. So we try to mix it up. We don't want the kids to get in their comfort zone in terms of, oh, this is what we do every travel. We want to surprise them and make it fun and exciting, and also for us as well. It gives us new things to see. We do have our mission. If you want to talk about our mission statement.
Yeah, so when we started this, we had a lot of people asking us, how do we do it? Why do we do it? Things like that. And we really came up with a short and sweet mission that encompasses the reasons. And that is that we want to lead by example and inspire and empower other families that have special needs in their families to pursue new adventures, and also expanding inclusive travel, because we have been to places where they aren't sure if they can accommodate us or make accommodations, because especially with the national parks, it does require a lot more physically demanding activities versus having a paved path, for example. And we've been able to work with some of the concessionaires and the visitor centers to make the experiences inclusive for the kids. And we're not able to mention names, but with one of them, we gave them feedback on our experience, because we expected X, Y, and Z after several hours on the phone back and forth making this experience for the children. And they didn't deliver what they had promised, and we gave them feedback, and it actually changed. It led to policy change and how it's handled, and how future reservations are handled when the expectations are set for a special needs community and their experiences. Will we ever go back? Maybe or maybe not, because we're always looking for new adventures, but we know that the people that follow us will have better experiences because of that. And that's really key. We don't want the next person to have as many challenges as we had in delivering experiences for their kids or their families. And so it's twofold. We want to have fun, but we also want to make the world easier to travel for everybody that may not have typical situations.
I think that's so important at times. I will talk to hotel managers or venues and talk about what they could do to make it better. And what they had led me to believe would happen didn't happen. On Catalina, I made a reservation for a hotel. They showed that they had rooms. They weren't classed as accessible rooms. I thought, well, we could deal with it because my wife has some mobility. The one piece of information they didn't provide is that it was 2 flights of steps and no elevator to get to these other rooms. And when you have mobility limitations, that's a challenge.
A lot of the companies, they don't really have an accessibility program or whatnot. So what happens, like for your example in Catalina, the person that said rooms were accessible or not, they don't have the different limitations that people with accessibility issues have. 1 flight of stairs might not be a big deal to them, but it can be to somebody else. So when we go on these adventures, we research what we can, but we want to share with other families, hey, they said it was accessible. Here's where the challenges came up during our adventure. So if you want to do this adventure, here's what you need to pre-plan for. So even if we can't get a policy changed or anything like that, we can alert our community into how they can better prepare for that same adventure or a similar adventure.
And again, that is so helpful. I love what you do and your attitude toward it. Can you talk about some of the favorite things that they've done and what you had to do to make it work?
So my daughter, who has cerebral palsy, she is a water baby. She loves the water and she wants to snorkel all the time. But her CP really affects her lower limbs, and she gets tired, and she is not able to work both her legs and her arms at the same time in some cases. And this didn't have to do with policy or anything like that. But one thing that we found is that if she keeps her legs straight, which is very easy for her to do, she can put her legs on my shoulders in front of me and I can push her while we're snorkeling. And she loves it. She'll come up and take a breath and be like, huge fish, huge, huge. And the girl is just fed like with joy and excitement for 2 or 3 weeks. Just she loves it. And so many people told us, well, she can't snorkel. She can't snorkel because she has CP. Well, we found ways around it. We'll use pool noodles and life jackets. And do I do a lot of the heavy lifting? Absolutely. But it is worth it to make it so she can experience it with the rest of us. And, that to me is just amazing because I know how much she loves being in the water.
And then my son is an only child. And so when we do these road trips, he's got 3 siblings and our kids really do get along like siblings. They love each other, they love hard, and they fight hard, But it's great because if I were to go on a road trip with my son and my husband, he's in the backseat by himself. We, of course, would talk to him and play music and all that. But when there's 3 other kids there and we're moving them around at each restroom stop or whatever, it brings a different dynamic to a road trip for him. And so I think some of the times he just wants to go on a road trip. It's like the destination is not important. It's being with the kids and rocking out to music together. And we take a stop somewhere and it's like, what is this new place? That kind of thing is exciting. So I think he really enjoys having the camaraderie with the other kids and with Kiki as well.
That's very nice. I can understand how the road trips would be interesting. I thought it was interesting too that you mentioned train trips and cruises and flying. All of those, I'm sure, have different challenges. One of the places that we stopped on our last cruise was a place called Icy Strait Point, and the zip line they have is accessible for pretty much anybody, and they will work to make it accessible and make it work for people. So if somebody has no mobility and they're okay with having people carry them, they can carry them out to where they put them in a seat, because the zip line is a seat type where you're harnessed into something you're sitting on. So you don't have to have any upper body strength. You can do it with a lot of the things that you might not think about. And I thought it was kind of amazing.
Yeah. It's nice. Those are adventures that no matter what anyone's disability is, they still want to do those adventures. And there's no reason why you can't find a way to make it safe for somebody. We are doing an Alaska trip and we'll touch base with you to figure out which company you use, because that would be fantastic. I know her daughter would absolutely, we'd probably hear her all the way down the mountain. She'd be just squealing with joy. So it's, when you see those things, getting that information is really important, because then we can share it, we can do it and we can share it with other people as well. And let's support those businesses that are making their excursions and their tours accessible.
And sometimes, because we are moms and we do have a lot of demands on our everyday life with helping with our children and whatnot, we do annual, sometimes semi-annual trips, just the 2 of us, and we do go explore new areas, so we know whether or not they're going to be a good place to take the kids back to at a future date as well. So we get a little R&R, but it is a little pre-research as well. But I cannot emphasize enough, whether it's a cruise or flying or trains or a road trip, is call and communicate. We've been on several different cruise lines with the kids. Some of them are very generous with their age requirements. My daughter, cognitively, though she's about 4, even though she's 13 years old, and some of the cruises we've been on have allowed her to stay with her younger sister in the activity rooms, and others have a hard, fast, absolutely not. She needs to be in the appropriate age group. But in our situation, that doesn't work. But they help us find alternatives that do work, so that we can still enjoy time and they can enjoy kid time, and it works out. But I cannot emphasize enough that it's the communication and the open communication and letting people know what you need. They don't want you to leave with a bad experience and give them bad reviews and never come back. In most cases, they want to work with us, and I've found that pretty much across the board, no matter where we've gone.
And I think the more you pre-plan and get all of those things in order, the more you'll enjoy your vacation, because you won't be running around trying to make things work. You will have things in place. And then if things don't work for any reason, you just pivot. And we've had many experiences where it was nothing like we thought. Sometimes it's way better, sometimes it's not as good, but it's still a new adventure. We still tried something new, and we don't have to do anything again. It's all about having that flexibility and understanding that a lot of times you're talking to people that don't have these same limitations. So you're educating them, and you get, what do they say? You get a lot more honey.
Catch more flies with
Yeah,
honey.
sorry, I don't know that phrase. We never want to make them feel like they aren't good enough or whatnot. We just want to say, here's what challenges came up for us, and this is what we think would be helpful in the future for other families. And so many of them are very receptive and appreciative of, like she said, they want to work with us. They want to have more families come and visit. We also did a lot of traveling during COVID, and interestingly, we had lots of low numbers. We did a lot of private tours for safety. So we did get a lot of one-on-one time with different facilities where we could really chat. And I think that was helpful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see a lot of things the audience you can take away from this. The first and foremost is do your research. Second is be willing to go with the flow, because my wife and I have been lots of places where things didn't work like we expected. We still had a great time with it, but you have to be flexible. You can't get too rigid. Another individual that travels with challenges, and she talked about building in some downtime. I talked about that on our live show on Sunday because I'm not good at that. So is that one of the things that you guys have to think about with your children, building in some downtime?
We do, and we have to make an extra effort to do it because both of us are go, 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 go people. And if you ask our kids, they will tell you that too. One of our favorite days, honestly, when we did a cross-country road trip from California to Florida last year, one of the favorite days that the kids talk about is the day that we really didn't do anything. We DoorDashed breakfast and had it delivered to the Airbnb that we were staying at, and we had a pool day, and we just relaxed because we had literally every day doing things, and there was a big learning experience for us. Here we are thinking we're delivering this awesome trip with the kids to Disney World, and we laughed because we had a symphony of tears in the background in the car doing a 2-hour drive, and this was after the kids had been in 4-hour days and 8-hour days in the car. And we had done tours and played at the beach and did all these really fun activities. And they enjoyed swimming, and snorkeling and sailing and whatnot. But if you ask them, they loved having breakfast and just a down day. And that really made us more conscious of building those in. And a few months later, we did a trip up through the West Coast. We took it slower and we built in more downtime and more days to play at the park or
Jump in a lake
or play at the hotel pool. And it actually was a smoother trip, and there were no symphonies of tears in the back seat. So yes, absolutely. And we would recommend those down days. Absolutely.
And it doesn't even have to be a whole day. Because like on the cruises, as you know, you're a cruiser, there's so much going on at all times. It's hard to say no to something that's fun because you think, this is my vacation, I paid for this. But on one of the cruises we went to, her youngest daughter, her favorite moments were laying in bed and watching TV in the stateroom
and ordering room service.
Right? So sometimes it's not even a day, it's just those moments. Like, let's take a 2-hour break. And with my son, let's take a 2-hour break, and he'll say, I'm not tired. Okay, that's fine. Just, lay on the bed for a little bit. 2 minutes later, he's out. He needs it. And so it's a lot of sensory input, right? Any trip you go on, there's lots of things going on. So it's really important to build in. It's not a day, even just a couple hours of downtime. And we were really aggressive with our cross country. We went from the West Coast in California all the way to the Everglades in Florida and back. And so that was a big undertaking. And I think her and I were in the mode of like, we want to see it all. We want to do it all. We learned we could have taken an extra day at a hotel every now and then. It still worked and it was great, but definitely build in those breaks. As small as they are, they're important to kind of reset And I think it also helps them appreciate the next thing a little better. They're not exhausted.
And it allows them to process too. A couple of years ago, I did a road trip with the kids to Wyoming, and we were seeing Yellowstone and Grand Tetons and camping and doing hot springs and fishing and doing all kinds of great stuff. Everything was going so fast that they couldn't even articulate whether or not they were enjoying it. One minute they saw a moose, and then they saw a hot spring, and then they saw Old Faithful and everything. And it took them a couple weeks before they could talk about it. They needed to sit down. And so since then, I've been having them journal or tell me what their favorite things were. With my oldest with CP, she's not able to read and write very well. And so we talk about it, and then I'll jot it down. So it will jog her memory down the road. And it's really interesting because randomly 2 or 3 weeks or 2 months later, we'll be at breakfast and she'll be like, "Oh, big bear. It was a big bear." And then it's like, okay. And then we start talking about it, and then they can process it and really remember what they were seeing versus being really overloaded from the sensory side.
I'm guilty, like I said, of doing that. Even with my wife, I jam things full. Of course, a lot of times it's because we're trying to film as many different activities as we can to show what they're like and how they work and those kinds of things. And it's one of those things I learned from this last trip. Going forward, we will start to build in some downtime and understand that we can go back if we don't get it all this trip. I thought that what you said about the sensory overload was interesting too, because I can remember taking my son to Disney, and it was more like a death march through Disney, through Disney World, trying to get all the parks in a week and see all the rides and do all the things. By the time you're done, you're toast, and they've been toast for hours, if not days.
We had a moment while we were waiting for Small World where 3 of the kids were flat out on the sidewalk. It was like 91 degrees and, humid. And it was like, hey, we're in line. There's nothing you can do. Let them just get it out. And then they ended up closing the park. They rallied, but there is, in those environments, times to just let them chill.
And you really do got to watch the kids or actually anybody in your group, because when they've had enough, they've had enough. We were standing in line for one ride, and my daughter, she just signed all done. And it took everything in my strength to get her to a bench to just sit down and rest. And she fell asleep. Lala went and took the rest of the kids on the rides. And she and I what were they? Maybe an hour and a half. We just sat and I let her sleep, and
her eyes might have been closed too. Actually, I might have photographic evidence of that.
I picked it up too while I was waiting. But it gave her just enough to rest so she could go and continue having fun the rest of the day versus me pushing and it leading to an awful time. And then everybody's mad that we're leaving the park early. So, it's really important, I found, to really watch the cues to everybody in the group that we're traveling with, and especially Max and Jaden.
I think this applies even for families with children that don't have challenges, more so the younger they are. I'm not big on spending a lot of money. People would tell you I'm very much a thrifty traveler. You take public transportation a lot. But at Disney, either at Disneyland or Disney World, I think there's some real advantages to staying in the park and being able to go get a nap in the middle of the day when it's really hot and the lines are long. Go early and then come back in late, but get the mid-afternoon nap. That way you and the kids can recuperate.
When I was a kid, that's what my family did. We weren't told we were taking a nap. We were told we were going to go back to the hotel and jump in the pool and cool down. Well, you throw us in the pool for 15 minutes and then go back up into the room to change and lay down for a few minutes. You get a nap out of kids. It was a good model for me.
and when that's not feasible too, there's other ways to do it. We were at another park, Morgan's Wonderland in Texas, and it was amazing. They had a huge pavilion that gave a picnic area a lot of shade. We took the kids over there and had sandwiches, maybe an hour. We sat and let them cool off, drink, eat snacks, and they had a little swing set next to the picnic pavilion area where the kids they honestly just sat. They weren't even really swinging. They were just resting. And then we went and tackled the rest of the day. But it was perfect because everybody just sat and cooled off and hydrated, and it allowed us to carry on. It was fantastic.
That is one of the advantages in some of the places. They'll have shows or things that you can go in and get. Though sometimes the shows don't give you the mental relaxation that you might want, but at least they help out physically. I have a question. Tell me about your train trip, because I'm a huge train fan. So where did you go and how did that work for the kids? What did they think of it?
So we're in Southern California, and I personally have family up the coast. And so we have just done day trips on the train. We haven't done an overnight, which that is on our list. But we just hop on the train at the end of the line here and take it up. And it's just a fun adventure. It takes obviously a lot longer than driving, but it's an opportunity for us to look and see what we're passing. And, it's beautiful here. You go up the coast for a lot of the rides. The scenery is beautiful. I tend to book business class versus coach. They give you a little bit extra room. We have a table there that we can use. A lot of times they have snacks and whatnot. And if you're on a train for 8 hours, that helps with kids to kind of let them get up and move around a little bit too. It's just something different. We've taken all the kids up to San Juan Capistrano on the train and just let them go out there. There was a petting zoo and we took lunch and that kind of thing. So it's just another way to adventure. We have this grand idea of seeing Vermont in the fall, and we're thinking maybe fly in and train down the East Coast a little bit. So we're talking about it.
And then the other way that we've incorporated the train as well with the kids, because I think it's very important for them to learn how to use the bus schedules, the metro schedules, train schedules, things like that. I have these choose your own adventure days. So when we're on spring break, Christmas break, things like that, I will drive to our local train station, coaster, and the kids will pick where we go and when we get off, and are we taking another train? And we've done that a few times, and sometimes we're on the train for 2 hours, sometimes we're on the train for 8 hours. And it turns out to be really fun because even I don't know where we're going to go. We'll say, okay, are we getting off here? Are we changing trains? Are we going northbound, southbound? And it's really empowered them to look at train schedules and see where we want to go. And then my son, who's 11, he really wants to go to Universal Studios, but he wants to take the train there. So he's now planning, how do we take the train? And then once we're at the train station, how do we get to Universal Studios? Do we Uber it? Do we take the bus? So it's giving him tools that he'll also use later in life as far as not only public transportation, but just understanding timing. And if I take 2 minutes on an Uber or 20 minutes on a bus, how is that going to impact me? And how does that impact me financially as well? Because obviously the bus is a lot less expensive than the Uber, and he can spend more money on food at Universal Studios, that type of thing. So we try and incorporate the education aspect as well when we're doing more of our local trips.
We have a trolley system here, and so that's also fun. We don't live far from downtown, but sometimes
Here in downtown is San Diego. We're in San Diego.
San Diego. So we don't live far from downtown, neither of us do, but parking at a trolley stop and letting the kids do that. We did that one day where we're like, should we get off or should we stay on? It's helping them learn how to navigate their own community, but it's also, there's always something fun at the end of the line somewhere. If you're headed downtown, there's lots of opportunities to play and whatnot. Like she said, there's some educational value, some good life skills being taught, and also fun. So it kind of checks all those good boxes.
I love what you just said. I think that is something that too often as parents, we do the planning. I love the research. I love the process. And I think it's one of those things that as you mentioned, as a life skill, that if our children learn to love that process and learn how to work through those processes, it's going to enrich their lives going forward.
Agreed.
Yeah. I have enjoyed our conversation so much. We will put it in the description of the video how people can get in touch with you. But tell us a little more about Kids for Adventure. Give me a 30-second elevator pitch on Kids for Adventure, what you do, where people can find you. And we'll put all the contact information in the description as well.
Okay. We started a blog. I have to be very forthcoming and let you know that we both write for the blog, but since we are special needs parents, we're a little overwhelmed sometimes. So it's not always up to date on the most recent adventure, but it's kids dash for the number 4 dash adventure.com. And we have the blog, but really Instagram is the best place to reach us. And it's kids, KIDS, for the number 4 adventure. We're out there to inspire families and to really empower them and let them know that they can do it. And even if it means going from your house to a neighborhood museum or a neighborhood park, we want to help you get out and explore and give you the tools and let you know that it is possible. And whether it's just getting out the door or whether it's going across the world, that there's steps, and we're here to support you. And I did start a Facebook, we've started a Facebook group as well, Kids for Adventure, to give people a safe community where they can talk and ask questions, and there's zero tolerance for any bullying or any judgment. Absolutely. We want to give people the tools, and we are very available to answer questions. Sometimes it takes us a couple days to respond to an email, but we will. And we want to be a resource for people so that they can really help their children just get out and explore more.
Yeah.
So I love what you do. I have loved our conversation today. I suspect that at some point in the future, I will have you guys back on, and maybe we'll talk about your last trip. I have the guests on, and we do the things that we do to help people see that they can do it, that it will work, and they can have a good time, that whatever challenge you face in your lives is not necessarily a reason that you can't enjoy the things around you. It just means you have to sometimes adapt to the way you do things.
Absolutely. Well, we've really enjoyed being on here and helping spread the word and increase the travel accessibility for everybody too. And we appreciate what you do. You're a great mentor for us.
Well, thank you very much.